Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One aficionados. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your Colour TV host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1964 season, part 2. So let's go.
I was a bit nervous about calling ourselves aficionados, Luigi.
Yeah,
but
that sounds
I know,
impressive.
Sounds a bit impressive, doesn't it? Well,
yeah.
Anyway.
But let's go with it.
Let's go with it. Like, we're aficionados in our own lunchbox. And colour TV, we're in colour.
Yeah, so now you're going to start seeing, I don't think they were showing TV of F1 races at this stage anyway, but yeah, colour. Now you can see the red of Ferrari and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so times they are a-changing.
Yes, very quickly.
So we're up to the third race of the season, the Belgian Grand Prix. And it was at Spa, as always. It's on the 14th of June, 32-lap race, 20 drivers with 18 starters and a 3x2x3 grid formation. So, Lotus make the debut of their new car, the Lotus 33, which had finally been repaired after the accident at Aintree.
That must have been some accident. I mean, that was back in early May, I think.
Yeah.
And Clark smashed it up, didn't he? What did he do to it?
Yeah, he smashed it. He smashed it bad. Like, he had to drive the old car for a couple of races. I guess it was all done. He did it to himself, didn't he?
He did.
So,
and also, like we've said, it was a Lotus. So any little tip would have I just imagine like this cartoon and the car just falls apart.
Yeah. So when it came to qualifying, Gurney in the Brabham actually set a blistering pace of 3 minutes 50.9, well ahead of Graham Hill, 3 minutes 52.7, and his team boss, Jack Brabham, 3 minutes 52.8. So I've always been impressed with Brabham, like not being afraid to get a driver in the car that can shake it up, even shakes him up.
Yes. That's I agree. I think he's not afraid of putting people around him that are as good as or potentially better than him in some ways. Like, that's a really good, strong leader, I think. And he's doing it for the benefit of the team as well.
Yeah, and good on him. Yeah.
So, and he was like, Gurney's time was 1.8 seconds ahead of second place. That's huge.
That is huge.
That is big.
Yeah. So, of great surprise was Jim Clark, who is an awesome qualifier, was struggling to find pace in his new Lotus, and he was only able to qualify in 6th place, over 5 seconds slower than Gurney.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a bit of a surprise.
That is a surprise. Yes. Yes. And don't we see dummy grids here, Luigi? Isn't that?
Yeah.
I know they did make an appearance in 1963, but this is and I think mainly in the US races like, Mexico but this is the first time, I think this is the first time we hear about them in Mike Lang's book of them appearing in Europe. So, and I don't remember hearing them or seeing them when I was watching Grand Prix in the 80s. So they must disappear eventually.
They must disappear. I don't think they last very long, but it's when you look at old footage of the 60s and 70s, you see it quite a lot. So to explain it again, which we would have explained it a little in 63. Yeah, but the fast version is the cars do a lap. Oh, actually, no, I don't think they do a lap. Actually,
they don't.
No, they just go on their dummy grid. They get a sign of some sort, and they move from the dummy grid to the grid proper, which is like 1 car length in front or thereabouts.
Okay.
Then they stop, and then they get a green light or a flag. And then they go.
Right.
So I think the idea is to make sure the cars are running okay. So if the car can't go from the dummy to the grid proper,
I guess
they may not start the race for safety reasons. Yeah. Safety.
Maybe. And there was a lot of mechanical issues that had cars dead on the grid back in the day. So maybe that's what they were trying to avoid as well.
Yeah. Now I'm just going to check. Did Arundel definitely get podium in that first race? Yes, he did.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm checking.
Okay.
So, So when the race started, Arundel in the Lotus made an awesome start and took the lead.
Whoa.
So this is a guy who on his debut got third, second race third.
Yeah.
However, by the end of the first lap, it was Gurney leading, followed by Surtees and Clark, with Clark doing well to get up to third from 6th in his brand new Lotus. So Arundel, good on him. He's really shaking it up. He's saying, "I want to be a number one driver." He doesn't really become one, but gee, on paper he looked good, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. So Surtees and the Ferrari then took the lead from Gurney in the Brabham, and these two started to pull away from Clark. However, Surtees' Ferrari's engine went sick, and he slowly drove back to the pits to retire. This left Gurney with a clear lead over Clark, who was just ahead of Graham Hill in the BRM. As Gurney kept pulling away, attention turned to the battle for second place between Clark in the Lotus and Graham Hill in the BRM. They were frequently side by side, with Clark having the upper hand past the pits and Eau Rouge, and Graham Hill having the edge later in the lap. From lap 12 to half distance, McLaren and the Cooper joined the jostling pair of Clark and Hill.
So 3 big names, although McLaren's not that big a name at this point in time. But, yeah, the racing would have been furious.
Yeah. Oh, he was a big name. He won races and he was up there the whole time. Yeah,
okay. The
other two had won championships.
Not as big as Clark and Hill, yeah.
Yeah, true. He becomes bigger later, I guess.
Yes.
In the meantime, Gurney's lead had now stretched to 30 seconds. And this is something I've noticed this season. Gurney is always up there. Yeah, he's doing really well in that Brabham. The ferocious battle for second subsided on about lap 20. And remember, this is a 32-lap race. With the leading trio lapping some back markers, Graham Hill actually did a great job to make a break and started to pull away from Clark and McLaren. And Clark started to make a break from McLaren at that point too. So at this point, Clark was unable to get back on terms with Graham Hill's BRM.
Yeah, look, I think this is like the second time we've heard Graham Hill outsmarting Clark when there's back markers to lap. So maybe he had like a particular strength in this area that maybe Clark didn't because, he's outsmarted him a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that's quite a valuable trait, reading the situation. He may have not had the raw pace of Clark, but yeah. So lap 27, Gurney set the fastest lap of the race.
He was in a zone.
Yeah. I wonder how he's going to go in the TP Championship because he doesn't get many points this season. No, but he should have. I hope I gave him points. I hope you gave him points. I'm not looking.
No.
I have done the review already, but I've forgotten because it was a while ago. So until a series of events changed this race.
No, come on.
Yeah, so in Mike Lang's words, and I'm going to quote him, now followed a succession of events which produced one of the most dramatic finishes to any Grand Prix.
Okay, now you've really set my expectations super, super sky high. We've seen Clark, we've seen Lang call out the race of the century. We've seen him call out leads changing every corner. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, so we'll call it there and we'll see you next week, next episode.
That's a bit cruel.
Yeah, we're gonna finish it off the most dramatic finish to any Grand Prix according to Mike Lang. So here we go. Let's see if it warrants that level of explanation. Lap 26, Gurney laps Ginther in the BRM, but then on lap 29, Ginther unlaps himself because Gurney was running out of fuel.
No.
Remember Gurney's the guy who went into the pits to get a suspension thing fixed and they didn't have a spare steering wheel because it was a steering wheel problem.
Right.
So here he is running out of fuel and this is a 32-lap race. Yep. So lap 29 is racing into the... Yeah. So Graham Hill closed right up to Gurney and took the lead. As you'd expect, Gurney's driving slow. So Gurney goes into the pits.
Yeah.
And there was no fuel available.
Yeah. I can understand maybe that there's no steering wheel, but how could you have no fuel?
I know. Can you imagine them going to the other teams, give us fuel, give us fuel, and I can imagine what the response is.
Oh, and this is Jack's team.
I
Jack,
know.
Why, Jack? Oh, my gosh.
So it is insane, isn't it?
So
no
hang
fuel.
on. What happens? Does he have to retire?
Well, Gurney is sent out on his way again.
Well, how? What is he meant to do now?
He's probably driving in first gear, low revs, like rolling down the hills.
No.
It's pretty nuts, isn't it? So this allowed McLaren to drive past into second place I wonder what Gurney was saying in the pits, and as he was sent back out again. Like he must have been using some pretty colourful language.
I was going to say he's American, so he couldn't even like swear in like, a different language. Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, this allowed McLaren to drive into second place as McLaren had passed Clark on lap 28 because Clark himself needed more water to cool his overheating engine.
Right, okay.
So lap 28 of 32. Okay. So 32-lap race. This is all happening, right?
Yep.
So, and each lap is about 4 kilometres. No, so not 4 kilometres, about a 4-minute lap. So while McLaren had passed now a Gurney who'd run out of fuel and coming back out with slow speed and Clark having to cool his engine down, McLaren himself found himself in trouble because his battery was running flat, which caused his engine to keep cutting out. Oh. So we are now at the start of the final lap. And Gurney had almost caught back up to McLaren.
Wow.
With his... This is nuts, isn't it? And these guys would have been driving slow, right? Because Gurney's not gutting it. Gurney's trying to get every... Yeah. So he almost catches up with McLaren, but when he reaches Stavelot, he pretty much runs out of fuel completely and grinds to a halt.
What a surprise. Like, is he getting out to push his car? Come on. It's only maybe about 5 kilometres.
Yeah, well, Brabham's got a history of doing this, and it is a Brabham car. So
we've only ever heard of 500 yards. I don't think he can push it 5 kilometres.
No, yeah.
Bad track to run out of fuel on.
Depends if you're on the uphill bit or downhill bit, though. But yeah. So also on the last lap, Graham Hill stopped further up the road. Yes, on the last lap, as his fuel pump was refusing to pick up the last few litres of fuel himself.
Oh, come on. I think that's just a nice way of saying that he had also run out of fuel.
Yeah, I think so. So here we are. McLaren's Cooper takes over a precarious lead again, hoping that his troublesome engine with the battery problem would keep going. However, before he reached La Source Hairpin, his engine died.
I think I read that he also ran out of fuel, Luigi. His engine died because there was no fuel. Yeah.
Yeah, to run the battery the battery damaged engine.
Yeah.
Wow, so he coasted around the hairpin to watch Clark snatch the lead just before the line to record an extremely lucky victory. Remember, Clark himself had an engine problem and had to have his engine cooled down by water. I think it was water being thrown on it or something.
No, that was the previous race. That was Hill. But
but he had something.
He had an overheating engine as well. Yes.
Oh, they may have not thrown water on it, but I reckon
water on it, but probably did.
Oh, okay.
Well, Clark didn't really need a lot of luck in his career, but he certainly got it this race. That is remarkable.
It is a pretty full-on ending, and even funnier, then Clark ran out of fuel on the slowing down lap. So he was brought back to the pits on the back of one of his teammates' cars.
Oh, that is gold. Look, I don't know who to feel more sorry for. Gurney, Hill, McLaren, all of them. That's just unbelievable.
My favourite part is when Gurney's nearly catching McLaren.
Yeah.
I want to see, that would have been excellent for taking pictures because there would have been no blur. Yeah. They would have been driving at like
normal
10 kilometres an hour or something.
Yeah, like a normal street car, 60 kilometres an hour.
Probably the slowest last leading lap of the race in history.
Yes.
as all the cars kept falling over and surviving.
Yeah.
So I give Mike Lang, he does capture the story well.
Yes.
And it also brings back memories for me of the 1982 Monaco Grand Prix, which is similarly crazy towards the very end. But I won't give any spoilers on that one away. No. But this was a pretty awesome race ending. So did it live up to their reputation, Rosa?
I think so. I think that was pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. And good storytelling. Good storytelling there, Luigi.
Oh, thank you, Rosa.
Okay, so on to the table. We've got Jim Clark with that lucky win out in the lead on 21 points, Graham Hill on 14 and Richie Ginther on 9. And on the constructors table, we've got the Lotus on 22, BRM on 15 and Cooper on 8.
Oh, you've missed the fourth ranked driver.
I'm not going to say that. It doesn't need. I'm not going to need. I don't need to. We're only doing top 3.
Okay. It's Peter Arundel.
It's Peter Arundel,
just so you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got pretty high expectations after the last race. I'll make a bet for the French Grand Prix, which is next 4th race of the season. June 28th, they'll have a little bit more fuel in their car.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So it's a 57-lap race. There's 18 drivers attending with 17 starters, and the grid formation is 3x2x3. So there was some contention that this was either the 50th French Grand Prix or it was the 42nd, depending on whether you counted the first F1 race being held, which was in 1906.
Okay. Well, either way, it was a very special event. Did they bring out the champagne in French style?
I'm not sure if they do that anymore.
No,
yeah, they don't mention it. Yeah,
okay.
I think those days are over. Yeah,
it's a shame.
Anyway, so to practice, in qualifying, Clark took pole in the Lotus, followed by Gurney in the Brabham and Surtees in the Ferrari. There's Gurney up there again. On Sunday race day, because Saturday was a rest day because it's France, the cars were given some exploratory lap on Sunday. And I'm calling that a warm-up.
Yeah. We do see warm-up laps in the 80s and 90s before the race, don't we?
Yeah.
But this is the first time I think I hear about it in this era.
Yeah. And my memory of those days, because that's when I was watching live, was the driver who normally got the fastest lap in the warm-up, generally it was Prost, would normally become the race winner because they were the ones showing that their race car setups were most ideal. So, yeah, a tip of the hat to Prost.
Oh, of course you have to tip your hat to Prost.
Yeah.
Well,
Senna didn't get many warm-up fastest laps.
Yeah. But he probably won as many races, or if not more. Why would you, but like from a strategy point of view, why would you, I guess everyone knew who was the fastest car on the grid, I guess, but why would you like give away your speed on a warm-up lap? Like if I was to be really like, I'd go, Prost, what are you doing?
I think it was a genuine effort to get the car right on the day. You know, weather changes. Yeah, like it's suddenly hot. Yesterday was not hot. Okay, let's tweak the car. Let's adjust the settings to work for the weather. I don't know.
Okay.
It makes sense.
They
don't do it anymore.
You just love Prost.
Yeah. Wait till TP Championship. Prost is going to be like a 10-time champion.
Yes.
To the race, there is mention of a dummy grid again.
Okay.
So they're back-to-back. There are multiple ones now. And while on the dummy grid, Clark's Lotus 25 was leaking oil.
So yeah, this Lotus 25 isn't doing well now.
No, and he's using the old Lotus. He's not wanting the new Lotus, is he?
No, but now the 25's leaking oil. God, he's not having good luck with his cars.
Well, he had good luck in the last race. So,
yes.
Yeah. So within seconds of the start, the car was wheeled into pole position and the flag fell, and Clark launched into an immediate lead with Gurney and Surtees following behind.
Okay. But, yeah, he's got no oil. And...
Yeah.
Okay. But it was wheeled into the pole position and then the flag fell.
Yeah.
What happened to the mechanics? Did they get out of the way?
Yeah. Did they magically disappear?
I don't know.
Were they diving for their lives?
Surely there was more time. Surely. And like
it makes me think that these races must have started with the mechanics standing on the side of the grid.
But
they must have because they didn't have time.
But also, again, Clark has evaded a disqualification because doesn't that constitute outside help? Like
that's as soon as the flag falls, that's when you're not allowed to have it, I think.
Okay.
That's my theory anyway.
Very technical. All right. Let's keep going.
The dummy grid is not considered the race.
The start of the race.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I agree with your thinking. Where did those mechanics go?
Yeah.
And how much risk were they taking with their lives?
And hopefully they fixed his oil leak. Hopefully. Okay.
Yeah, they don't talk about that. Off you go.
See ya.
So in the race, Clark and Gurney were pulling clear. Surtees was already in the pits dealing with a broken oil pipe and he would retire soon after based on this. Also early in the race, Graham Hill and the BRM and McLaren and the Cooper both spun early and were with the back markers from this point. Within just 5 laps, Clark had already built a 6-second lead over Gurney, who in turn was 17 seconds ahead of Brabham in the Brabham.
I'm still very concerned about his car leaking oil. And they can't refill, remember? You're not allowed to refill oil in a pit stop. So this is going to be very interesting.
Well, while we remember that rule, that doesn't necessarily mean that rule sticks. You know, we've seen rules come and go and be ignored by certain countries and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, where is the oil leak? Surely engines don't run at this ferocity if they've got an oil leak. Yeah. So by lap 15, Graham Hill was on a charge and he had moved up to 5th place. At half distance, however, Clark, all the way in the lead in his Lotus, had a 60-second lead over Gurney in the Brabham.
His magic Lotus that doesn't need oil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until lap 30. Clark's engine went sick. A pit stop couldn't resolve the matter and he retired a lap later.
There we go. I knew cars needed oil to run. I knew it.
Yeah.
I don't know much about cars, but I know that.
This is our technical skills showing. So we have a new race leader. I mean, Clark had this race in the bag, but we have a new race leader, and of all people, it's Gurney in the Brabham. Again, always up there. He was first, with Brabham, his team leader, second. So we've got a Brabham 1-2 position. However, Brabham himself was not having an easy time, as he had Graham Hill in the BRM and Arundel in the Lotus closing up on him. At the front, however, Gurney was still 60 seconds clear. For the rest of the race, which was about 30 laps, Brabham and Graham Hill fought ferociously with barely a car length separating the two cars right to the end of the race. And it actually came down to the wire, with Graham Hill pipping Brabham to second place by 0.8 seconds, despite Brabham himself setting the fastest lap of the race. Arundel was 5th, having fallen over 60 seconds further back, so those guys really set a pace. I want to pin this for conversation later. Okay. Look at Graham Hill and Brabham having a big battle for 30 laps. They didn't hit each other or anything, and Graham Hill won that battle by 0.8. So look at those two great drivers having a side-by-side battle all the way to the end.
I know where you're going with this, Luigi. I've already got like an argument, so
I've got that's evidence one. So we'll refer back to that. Yeah. So Gurney had given Brabham their first race team win, just like he did in 1962 with Porsche.
And ironically, both of their wins were essentially inherited because of first placed driver having to retire. But good on him.
He was up there. Yep. He was up there all this season, though, to be honest.
And he knows how important it is to be second.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. That's exactly right. So how's the championship looking now?
Okay, so we have Jim Clark still on 21, Graham Hill on 20, Ginther on 11, together with Peter A. And then we've got on the constructors' side, we've got the Lotus on 25, BRM on 21 and Brabham on 14.
Yeah, and Gurney goes up to 5th in the championship with that win.
Yes, he's on 10, yes.
And he feels like he should have been much higher because he's been up there all year.
Yeah,
so it's a real surprise, that, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we're up to the British Grand Prix, the 5th race of the season. This is at Brands Hatch, and this is actually the debut of the Brands Hatch circuit. So a lot of us in the 2024 and most recent era, we know the British Grand Prix is Silverstone, but there was a good stint in the 80s and 90s where Brands Hatch had a few goes. So this is the debut of that track. This is on the 11th of July. It's an 80-lap race. There's 25 drivers participating with 23 starters, and the grid formation is a 3x2x3. So it's a 4.3-kilometre circuit, and so the race length is 341 kilometres. So, look what I've said here. Copying the French, they offered 100 bottles of champagne to the fastest lap on day one.
Right.
And Gurney and the Brabham obliged with 1 minute 38.4. So they must have given away the champagne. They
must have, yes.
And isn't it interesting that that's what their strategy was to get more crowds coming on day one by making that the thing?
Yeah, making it a bit of a novel thing to win champagne. Yep.
So while he may have not won the champagne itself, when it came to the fastest time of the weekend, this honour fell to Clark in the Lotus, who got pole with 1 minute 38.1, followed by Graham Hill.
Yes, I think this is the race, Luigi, where they show, like this is the practice where the four-wheel drive BRM comes in. And it's driven by Richard Atwood. See, that's a good name.
Yeah.
So It didn't actually make an appearance in the race, but it did set respectable practice times of 1 minute 45.2, which is, I mean, it's on the edge there. But, yeah, interesting.
It would have been good to see that in the race, to see what it could do if it was reliable. They probably didn't have the confidence perhaps it would get through. On race day, the drivers lined up on their dummy grid and then moved forward to the grid proper.
Okay. Yep.
And we've talked about this now.
I think we have to sort of get used to them now.
Yeah. So to the race start, unfortunately, Eamon in the Lotus BRM, who qualified 11th, his clutch failed. So Siffert in the Brabham BRM took avoiding action and hit Gardner's Brabham Ford, and Gardner was out immediately.
What's a Brabham Ford?
I know.
What? Wow. So now we've heard about
I almost want to check if that's a typo.
Yes. What is a Brabham Ford? We've got a Brabham BRM, a Brabham Ford, a Brabham
I haven't got my book with.
a Brabham Climax.
I haven't got my book with.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on.
Move on.
It's interesting how the privateers would bolt on a different engine to the chassis that they acquired. And even Eamon was in a Lotus BRM while Clark was in a Lotus Climax.
Wow.
So it does make it quite fascinating.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So at the front, Clark held off Gurney to take the lead, followed by Graham Hill, Surtees, Brabham and the rest. I'm still saying Graham Hill.
Yeah,
but
you are.
We're not really hearing much of Phil Hill.
We're
so
not.
I'm not sure if this is the time to drop, if I can just say Hill, right?
I think you still have to say Graham Hill for a little while.
A little while, yeah. Followed by Graham Hill, Surtees, Brabham and the rest. Gurney had engine issues on lap 2 and lost 5 laps while fixing this issue. He's having a lot of troubles this year, that Gurney. And McLaren also in the Cooper retired at this time as well.
Yeah, and in the midfield, Hale Wood, who's driving a Lotus BRM, another interesting combination. He went off the track early in the race and he ran over a camera and the tripod. The photographer just got out of the way just in time.
That's like a big wow. These photographers are probably on the side of the track.
Yes.
They weren't behind a barrier or behind concrete.
No.
You know, we don't hear about the photographers, but if the spectators were taking the risks of being there, I'd say the photographers were taking an even greater risk. So, yeah. So, funnily enough, Halewood actually continued after this incident, but he did retire on lap 17, and it was actually thought because of the damage to his car from hitting that camera and tripod.
Yes, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And that would have been very expensive for that photographer. Hopefully he got a prize-winning picture out of it.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be an awesome picture? Like close-up accident. Yeah. He was probably too busy diving versus pressing a button.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have had automatic button pressing back in those days. His finger needed to do the work. And that would have cost him his life. So
totally not worth it.
Yeah. So by lap 20, Clark was leading Graham Hill, but they were running nose to tail. So pretty exciting. Surtees was third, not too far back, 10 seconds back.
This is exciting. And if they're going to be lapping cars, we know that Graham Hill has like a special power when it comes to lapping cars. So, so this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. So by lap 30, only Surtees in the Ferrari and Bandini in the Ferrari were on the same lap as the two dominant leaders, which was Clark and Graham Hill just racing away. Between lap 40 and 60, little changed other than Clark began pulling away from Graham Hill.
He was a bit worried that during this lapping stuff he was going to get passed by Hill.
Yeah. So these two drivers were now starting to lap the field a second time.
Oh, this is the opposite of the 64 Dutch Grand Prix with that amazing ending.
Yeah, that's right. So we do need a normal race to make one appreciate the special races. But this wouldn't have felt like a normal race to Clark and Hill as our fighting for the lead.
True.
But Clark does pull away. So the real excitement in this race as we head to the finish was actually the battle for 8th place.
Luigi, 8th place? Really?
Well, we've got to respect what Mike Lang says, right? So while we don't have a word count to comply with in this podcast, and we're not trying to fill it up, but it does give us something interesting to talk about, right? And it's good to hear some of the drivers we don't normally hear about. So, and Ireland, we heard more about him in the earlier 60s, but not so much this year. So Ireland in the BRP BRM, so BRP is that team that Moss's dad manages, began to lose ground, which allowed Ginther in the BRM to consolidate this position and pass after passing Spence in the Lotus Climax.
Okay. Yep.
So 20 laps.
You've got my attention. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Well, I'll wrap it up. So 20 laps to go. Clark has an 8-second advantage over Graham Hill in the BRM. Clark sets the fastest lap on 73 out of 80 and then eased off to win by 2.8 seconds. So he really backed down. He didn't want to push his car.
No.
This was Clark's third win of the season, and Surtees came home 60 seconds further back in third.
Well, I can see now why you did talk about 8th place for a little while. Nothing much happened. It is always interesting when a driver dominates a race so much, the race ends up being like a bit boring to talk about. But like we just have to call out how amazing that race was from Clark. Yeah. But I am going to name drop a huge name here, Luigi. So apparently in my reading, Jackie Stewart comes second in the sports car race, driving an E-Type Jag in the curtain raiser to this race. Now, that is a massive name, as we all know. So he caught the attention of Ken Tyrrell at the Goodwood race meet, and he raced in F3 for him in 1964. And he did not bad. He won all but 2 races.
It's interesting to see the connection starting to form. And the amazing results they get in the future.
Yes.
Which is not giving too much away other than success.
Yes. Yeah. So, that came through when I was reading that. Okay, on to the championship standings. We have, Jim Clark stretching his lead now to 30 points. Graham Hill is second on 26 points. And, there's 3 drivers on 11 points. We've got Richie Ginther, Peter Arundel and Jack Brabham on 11 points. And we've got in the constructors Lotus on 34, BRM on 27 and Brabham on 17.
Ferrari's not really featuring too much, is it? Yeah, they're a little bit distant, and I don't see Surtees in the top 6 of the championship at all. So to put in perspective, Clark's got 30 points.
Yep.
Brabham's in 5th with 11. No Surtees in there.
Surtees.
Just bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, thank you, Luigi. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move on to race 6, the German Grand Prix, infamous Nürburgring, August the 2nd, 15 laps. As we know, it's a long race. Each lap is about 10 minutes, thereabouts. Number of drivers are 24 attending, but 22 starters, and the grid formation is a 4x3x4. So, Honda finally make their F1 debut, but they had overheating problems right away. And eventually, Bucknam, who was their driver, qualified in 22nd and last place, about 20 seconds behind Baghetti in the BRM. So,
oh well, they're there at least.
Yeah. So, qualifying up front, though, was a great time for Ferrari, with Surtees taking pole ahead of Clark in the Lotus, Gurney in the Brabham and Bandini in the Ferrari. So this gave Ferrari 2 cars on the front row, and we haven't seen the Ferraris be up there this season.
And it's interesting, we're seeing Gurney up there again, and he's out-qualifying his team leader quite consistently. I think in this race, Brabham qualified 6th. And, like for most races of the year, he's been up there, Gurney. But I did read that Brabham wanted to take himself out of the car more and more and concentrate running the team. So that might account for why he's a bit, lower on the grid.
He's distracted. Yeah, he's distracted with business. Remember that race? Was it in 63 when he went back to the office to fix the engine?
Yeah. That's right.
He couldn't call it in. Yeah. So unfortunately, there was a tragedy on the final practice day where the driver called C.G. de Beaufort, which his name was Karel Godin de Beaufort from Holland, he crashed heavily in his Porsche and would succumb to his injuries on the Monday post the race. Oh. So it's pretty sad. Yeah. However, this opened up a very interesting journey for me because I wanted – normally we give a driver a little bit of airtime for the sacrifice they have made for the support. Yes. And this guy surprised me way more than I expected. Okay. So I don't know, Rosa, if you want to take turns reading out some of these things with me. Yeah, so I'll start off with that he participated in 31 F1 races. Oh. He actually made a debut in the 57 German Grand Prix. And this was his last race, the 64 German Grand Prix.
Well, he was the first Dutchman to get points in Formula One.
Yes, so before Max Verstappen.
Before Max, yep.
Before Jos Verstappen.
Yeah. And he was considered one of the last truly amateur drivers and ran his cars a vibrant racing orange colour.
So a lot of pride, but the really interesting stuff is coming now.
Okay.
Now, this is straight from Wikipedia, so I'm openly admitting I'm quoting Wikipedia, but these stories sound believable and there might be a little bit of offensiveness here. So I'm just giving you a warning. If you have a concern about body types, you might want to skip the next couple of minutes. But it's a reflection of him and his reputation and his sense of humour. So it's more a reflection of the driver. We're not trying to say anything ourselves. In the early days, he was considered something of a mobile chicane and a danger to the other drivers on the track.
Oh, my gosh.
However, in later years, he matured into a competent and popular competitor. Now, I don't know how true that last point is. Right? Yeah. That's just what was written in the Wikipedia. So although the 718, I think that was the Porsche he was driving, it was a Porsche car, was outclassed even in its first year with him, he persisted with it as it was the only design into which he could fit his burly frame. The size of the car and a streak of self-deprecating humour in de Beaufort himself earned it the nickname Fatty Porsche.
Oh, gosh.
So he had a bit of a funny sense of humour about himself there. With stereotypical aristocratic eccentricity, he often drove without shoes.
No way.
And at his final race in Germany, he was even seen taking practice laps wearing a Beatles wig rather than his helmet.
Oh, this guy was out there.
He was a rich guy.
Yeah, and having fun.
Didn't follow the rules, having fun, no shoes, Beatles wigs. He was, I mean, it's sad that we lost him.
Yeah, a real character.
Talk about not caring about safety.
Yeah.
How did he keep the wig on his head driving at 200 Ks an hour?
No. Wow.
I thought he deserved a little bit of airtime because if he obviously lived a bright orange life.
Yes.
And he died that way too, and he deserves a little bit of airtime. And I hope that last bit that he was respected as a competent racer and
I think
was true and not just a family member that was like trying to...
And I hope that that's actually what people remember him for, as well as all his humour as well.
Yeah, correct. So on race day itself, in the morning, there was a 5-lap bicycle race.
What? That would have taken half a day to get through.
Yeah, 110 kilometres. So I thought that was worth mentioning because that sounds like a bit of fun.
Oh.
So finally it was race start, and while Bandini took an early lead, it was Clark leading after the first lap, followed closely by Gurney and Surtees. Remember, Ferrari got on the front row in this race. However, Surtees and the Ferrari would move into the lead soon after, with Clark staying right with him, and then Gurney in the Brabham, followed by Hill in the BRM, following in very close proximity. So these 4 drivers remained very tightly bunched, with Gurney now passing Clark for second and setting about catching Surtees in the lead. He duly took the lead on lap 4, but Surtees held on grimly and retook the lead soon after, so real battle there. The lead changed between these two on a regular basis up to lap 7.
Surtees, go.
Now, let's remember, lap 7 is like 30 minutes of lap changing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and Surtees go for Rosa.
Yes.
It was about this time that Gurney started to have water pressure and temperature problems, partly worsened by some paper that was caught in his radiator opening. Gurney, what's happening with you this year? No fuel, no steering wheel,
paper,
no water pressure. So Clark in the Lotus was having even worse problems as his car was having exhaust valve issues and he retired on lap 7. So up front, Surtees was comfortably leading, and on lap 11, he set a lap record that was virtually on par with his own pole position time.
Surtees. Okay.
Gurney was still struggling with his car overheating, and even Graham Hill was worried as his engine was starting to sound a bit rough. Despite this, Hill passed Gurney for second place, now about 60 seconds behind Surtees.
60 seconds, that's huge. Man, he's really in a good place with that Ferrari this race. Yeah.
And he wasn't, this is not an inherited lead.
This is
he got this lead.
That's right,
yeah?
exactly.
So Brabham and the Brabham had now moved up to third place, but this was short-lived as he suffered a mechanical issue which ended his race. Even the Honda didn't want to miss out on all the retirement excitement, with Bucknam retiring when he spun off the track.
I think that's some excitement that you don't have to be a part of, Honda. Like, that's the wrong thing to be a part of, but okay.
So the race drew to a close with Surtees driving at his own pace to give himself and Ferrari their first win of the season.
Wow.
Graham Hill in the BRM nursed his home to a distant second, and Bandini in the Ferrari came home an even more distant third, over 3 minutes behind Hill.
Okay. Oh, that was an interesting... I didn't expect Ferrari to win any races this year. So that was good. And like you say, it wasn't like because of like half the field retiring. They actually did it off of speed, and that's good. But if you've seen pictures of this podium, these wreaths that the drivers are wearing go all the way down their whole body.
Yeah.
It looks really cool. They should do that today. They should bring that back.
Yeah, I think so. That'd be cool.
Would be cool. Okay, so back to the Drivers' Championship. We have Graham Hill on 32, Jim Clark on 30, and Surtees on 19. Wow. He's come out of nowhere.
But he's still way behind.
He's still way behind, yep.
Yeah.
And in the constructors table, we've got Lotus on 34, BRM on 33, and Ferrari on 19. Well,
the championship's starting to hot up, isn't it?
Well, we might leave it there, Luigi, because, yes, as you say, the last part of this season does have a bit of an emotional trigger for you.
I'm still suffering PTSD.
Which I feel may take some extra time for us to get through. So we might come back next week for that last part of 1964.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. We have a Patreon.
Yay, we're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.